Welcome to Talmudic Treasures. Today we are learning Sotah, page 25, which discusses the law that a husband who is concerned that his wife is potentially with another man and will potentially seclude herself with that other man, he is going to need to warn her to tell her not to do so. And as we mentioned, if she continues and secludes herself, then that's where the laws of the Sotah apply, where she's tested with these waters. On this, the Talmud tells us that as long as she did not yet seclude herself with another man, even though he warned her, he could always retract. And he can say, that's it. I was wrong. I shouldn't have accused you. And therefore, I am just taking back my original words. We say that actually works. However, once she's actually secluded herself with another man, at that point, she now becomes forbidden to her husband. And because of that, he no longer has the ability to retract on his original warning, and therefore she remains forbidden to him. But again, if he did retract before she secluded herself, so then it's a good retraction, which means that even if she does seclude herself afterwards, it will not have the same power because it's necessary for her to be warned first. On a similar note, the Talmud tells us that when it comes to a young child who is acting exceedingly rebellious, that is someone who's called a ben Mora. And the Torah actually tells us that this child, he steals and he eats the meat in a partially cooked manner, doesn't drink the fully diluted wine, that he stole money to purchase these things. So after him getting first lashes, eventually he's actually punished with a capital crime. Now the truth is the Talmud elsewhere says this has never taken place, it's never actually happened, but the Torah does actually officially say that this child could be punished in this severe manner. But also over here we find that a parent who wishes to overlook this, we say that the laws of ben Mora do not apply. And therefore, even if this child did everything wrong, but if the parent doesn't wish to press charges, if you will, then the law is, then this child will not be punished. And lastly, there's a dispute whether or not you have a person who is a rebellious elder called a Zaken Mamre, and he goes against the very fabric of all the Jewish laws and the judicial system, and he's brought all the way to the top court of the Sanhedrin, that there's also typically a capital offense, whether or not the courts can say, we're not going to punish him. Or do we say, no, we have to punish him because he's causing too much arguments among the Jewish people, and therefore it has to be stopped. But we see from here this interesting notion that a person could say something, give warning, and retract. Similarly, a parent could decide that this punishment that was going to be placed upon their child ends up not occurring. Now, whether or not this is good practice is something which is debatable, because on one hand, it does show that the parents are compassionate toward this child. But if you have a parent that allows their child to do anything and there's no consequences, and the parents end up saying, don't worry about it, so what do you think is going to end up happening with that child? There's probably a stronger likelihood that that child is going to continue to be rebellious and perhaps continue in a life of crime and mayhem. Also, when it comes to this woman, if you see that she's acting in a lewd manner, that you actually had to warn her, and she ends up secluding herself, but you retracted before, again, the whole notion of this is in order to be able to have a harmonious relationship in which the wife is not straying from this relationship. And therefore, if you are a person who just is on some level a pushover, it may look like you're a nice guy, but on the other hand, what you're doing is you're basically saying that you don't care necessarily that your wife is engaged in these practices. And therefore, you have to know when is it a good time to put your foot down and to say, enough is enough.